She told me, oh man, get her to cry.
Now he is living in the bottle. So welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, folks. We're going to have guest with us today, Mr. Frank Venucio. He'll be calling in, and we'll kick it a little bit. We'll do an analysis of what the what the election holds. You know, we listen to these talking heads for months now, and they're all talking about how this election is a referendum on President Trump. And President Trump has embraced this. He said, okay, if it's a referendum on me, then I'm going to go out and campaign like it is my election. And that's what he's done. And he's gone out and he's kicked butt. He's gone out. He's gone to Massachusetts. He's gone to Michigan. He's gone to Florida. He's gone to California. He's gone to Texas. You know, the guy, Missouri, the guy is going everywhere. Not like Obama, out taking vacations and, you know, having state events at the White House where he's partying, shaking his booty with Jay-Z and Beyonce. As somebody said once that knows the Obamas, one of their friends from here in Chicago, see, if I see those Negroes up there shaking their booties with another, with Jay-Z and Beyonce again, I'm going to scream. I didn't say it. That's what some of their friends said. That's what we kind of get when we're dealing with these Obamas. You know, Sean Hannity caught a lot of flack for getting up speaking last night hey, Frank, I hear you over there. Frank Venucio is with us, folks. Well, I was just saying that Sean Hannity took a lot of flack for getting up on stage. The president invited him up on stage to say a few words. And Fox News said, well, we don't condone our host campaigning for, well, you know, he campaigns every night for Donald Trump. Hello. And then my good friend Michael Steele was over at MSNBC this morning saying that somehow the American people are not going to vote for Donald Trump because they're tired of his vitriol, his racism. And I'm going, what racism? I just had a conversation with a guy who's telling me that, and this is an intelligent man. This is a man who was in Reagan's cabinet. And I'm not going to mention his name because he's a good friend of mine, love him to death. He said to me, Trump is a Nazi. He's a fascist. This is what Hitler did. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that. You know, tell somebody else that. That sounds good for somebody else. I'm just not listening to that. Frank, how you doing, man? Frank is with us. He's the editor-in-chief of the New York Analysis of New York Analysis of Policy and Government, where he reviews policy issues. And we've talked about policy issues for the last 10 years on my show. Glad to know Frank. He's such a great American. And, you know, Frank, here we are again, another election, another crossroads, supposedly. You know, my prediction, as I told you offline, is 54 senators for the GOP, and the GOP holds the House. What's your thoughts?
Well, I definitely agree with you on the Senate. The House is difficult to predict, and let me tell you why, Charles. Unfortunately, most people, for the most part, don't vote for a congressman the same way they vote for senator or president. In many cases, people vote for a local congressman based essentially on local issues or things. You know, did you call up your congressman? Did he give you a good constituent servicing environment? Did he help you with a particular problem? There are a lot of very, very local factors that go on in congressional races, which is why it's so hard always to predict how the House will go. Now, there's some overriding things that we can look at. For example, the Democrats outspent the Republicans 3-2 in House races. That's really important. That gives you a lot of information on who has the most hold on the voters' attention span. You have to look also at the media, and this is something you and I have discussed continuously. We know the media has not acted like the press. They've acted essentially as an offshoot of the Democrat Party. So we've seen for the past 6 months or so, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, essentially become part of the Democrat campaign. Now, for a lot of voters who aren't paying attention, or they turn on the evening news for a couple of minutes, that's all they get. That might sway their point of view. That might sway their vote. One of the things that drives me crazy
Uh-huh.
is when you listen to folks, whether it's on the radio or TV, or a newspaper editorial saying, I don't care what your opinion is, go out and vote. Please, no. Stupid people shouldn't vote. If you haven't taken the time and attention to research the candidates and research the issues, please do us all a favor. Stay home and leave your uninformed opinion back on the living room couch where it belongs, not in the voting booth.
But Frank, that would be most of the American people, because most of the American people get their news, get their information by looking at morning news. Like, I remember when Brian Gumbel used to come on NBC. I used to religiously look at NBC, the Today Show, because I was getting ready for work. And, I can't, but, because of and that was before we had the internet. That was before we had, laptops. That was before we had phones that you could carry around. We had the luggables. Today, there's really no reason why the average person can't be an informed decision maker about politics, about their finances or anything else, given the access to information that we have. Taking that a step further, I would just say that when I look at the election, when you're talking about the House and the Senate, I think that this election, you have more, as we've heard, we've had more people vote absentee, vote early. We've had more people than ever show up at the polls. This guy was just talking about on Fox News today, was talking about the Upper East Side in New York and how all of these, he says a very liberal community, blah, blah, blah. But all these people were showing up for Donald Trump this morning on the Upper East Side. See, what's going on in the country? I think
two of the interesting questions that we're going to see in this campaign are whether two groups that normally vote solidly Democrat are going to switch their vote because, frankly, of the success of the Trump administration in the past 2 years.
Right.
We know that Black Americans have done a hell of a lot better under Donald Trump than they have under any prior administration. So we're going to be watching whether, in fact, that changes the Black vote. And a slight change in that vote can really make the difference. The other group that we're going to be looking at, of course, is blue-collar workers. Now, blue-collar workers have seen the president adopt the issues that are most important to them and run with them a lot more than any other president has. So it's going to be interesting to see whether normally Democrat voting blue-collar workers do what they did in 2016 and switch their allegiance to Republican candidates.
Well, this is the deal for me, Frank, and I wrote a piece about this today. The reason that Black people are voting for Donald Trump is because he's delivering on issues that are important to them. Trade. You'd be surprised at how many Black people I talk to who have often talked about the unfair trade practices, which put them out of jobs. And their jobs left and went to China and Mexico and these other places. And in the Black community, which is never reported, that because Black people aren't supposed to be interested in the economy, foreign affairs, and things like, you never see Black people on TV talking about these things. That's why I had to cut my relationship and cut my ties with Fox, because I am not about just Black issues. And the Black community is not about just Black issues. Anyway, getting to the point, Donald Trump comes in, and what does he say? I'm going to bring your jobs back. Black people know that means bringing jobs back for them too. You look at Gary, Indiana, right down the street from me. I'm looking at Gary right out the window. When those jobs come back to the steel factories down here, U.S. Steel said they're investing $750 million in their plants in Gary now, not 10 years from now, not 5 years from now. It's already started. So trade, tariffs, they know what that means, in the Black community. The economy, whose heart is hit? last hired, first fired. That was always the mantra in the Black community, and in my home and in other homes. My dad just happened to be a union guy, so we didn't face that, but I certainly faced that as an adult and as a professional. You go out here and you look at, the Rasmussen poll said that Donald Trump has a 40% approval rating among Blacks. It is blowing people away. So now they're saying, well, Rasmussen doesn't really interview that many Black people. I mean, that's what several of these commentators said about Rasmussen. Before, Rasmussen was credible. Now, because Rasmussen is reporting that Blacks are supporting Trump by 40%, all of a sudden, they're not that transparent. They don't interview that many Black people. Frank, we have this thing going on out here that no one really wants to pay attention to. And that is, as I said to you years and years ago, and I continue to say that today, Latinos, American Hispanics do not support illegal immigration. They don't support
That's
immigration.
correct.
They don't support immigration either, because both Blacks and Latinos are negatively impacted by new people coming in, replacing them, wanting to work harder, work longer, because they're not Americans. And I always tell these people who, when we get illegals in, they work harder than Americans. I said, until they become Americans. Well, they'll work night and day until they become Americans, you SOB. I mean,
and Charles, there's another group too. There's another group too that's being really detrimentally affected by immigration, legal and illegal, by the way. If you talk to young folks, young men and women coming out of college who have degrees in things like computer science.
Oh yeah, the H-1B visas are killing them. Listen, when
H-1B visas are absolutely destroying them. The young engineer on my radio show, for example, has a great knowledge. One of the most skillful young men I've ever met in terms of computer science. And he has displayed to me all the stories about how the salaries that he expected in terms of computer work basically went down the toilet, as well as job opportunities because of the H-1B visa.
Listen, I talked to Don Evans, who was Secretary of Commerce for Bush. I was at a meeting and Don Evans was there. I approached him about H-1B visas. He didn't know what they were. He and I had a phone conversation about H-1B visas and how detrimental they were. And he's to the American workers. And he said, well, why is Microsoft, why is Bill Gates, why is Steve Jobs, why are they supporting H-1B visas? And I said to him, for higher profits. They pay these guys 40 grand a year. They pay a real American 70 grand a year. That's a $30,000 delta just on one employee. And that's not counting, that's just salary. That's not counting benefits. And you know what he said to me? Wow, I get it. But the Congress, because they're bought and paid for by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, they pushed through raising H-1B visas that year from 300,000 to 600,000. And I was never able.
Isn't it fascinating, Charles, how the leadership of both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, kind of align on this issue in favor of the visas? And isn't it fascinating how the
campaign contributions,
the Democrats and the Republicans, both the leadership of the Democratic and Republican Party oppose President Trump on his trade issues? Because
see, Trump is doing what needs to be done, and everybody tries to declare that you can't do this in Washington. Didn't McConnell tell Trump, well, you can't do this. This is not the way we work in Washington. And the president said, well, that's not my problem. This is what I'm doing. It kind of reminds me of the president talking about the birthright, putting out an executive order against birthright citizenship. No one attacked Barack Obama when he put out the executive order, which was in direct conflict with the Constitution, on DACA. He couldn't make legislation, but he did. I'm going to make sure that that 1.7 million children of undocumented. No, there is no undocumented in the U.S. Code. It says illegal alien. It doesn't say undocumented. What do they call them, Frank? Undocumented what? I refuse to learn the term. Undocumented workers.
Undocumented workers, yeah.
It doesn't make any difference. That is not in the code. It's codified that, whoa. I am going to we're going to skip those commercials today, guys. We're going to keep rolling here because this is Election Tuesday. And Election Tuesday is so important. It is so important, Frank, that we get everybody out. It's so important that we get people out who are voting their interest, not their heart. You know, I did a piece today, and it's
well, the other issue, Charles, is that's kind of fascinating is whether people will vote their heart, their issues, or whether they're simply going to vote out of loyalty to the political party in which they are registered. Now, that happens to some extent in both parties, but dramatically higher within the Democrat Party. It seems that far too many people registered in the Democratic Party have the misconception that somehow you have to vote Democrat if you are a registered Democrat, or somehow you're betraying your heritage if you don't vote Democrat. The fact of the matter is the Democrat Party that exists today has absolutely no relation whatsoever to the Democrat Party that perhaps our grandparents understood. John Kennedy, for example, would have absolutely no place whatsoever in today's Democrat Party.
Well, that's because the Democrat Party of Kennedy was very cunning, very undermining, very political. This was a group of racists. The Democrats in the Congress were racist and segregationists, verifiable. It's not like you did not have to go looking for these people. Robert Byrd was a Klansman. Throughout the South, nothing but Southern Eastland, Stennis, Wallace, nothing but Democrat racists. It always boggled my mind as a kid. How could black people support Democrats when these were Democrats who were turning water hoses on people and not allowing them to vote? And I'm thinking to myself as a kid,
and let's even go back a little bit further, even further than that. The Democrat Party was the party of slavery, and it was the party of segregation. Charles?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, it was, but
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I think the issues, Frank, is it hasn't stopped being. It never stopped being the party of racism or segregation or oppression. You know, as a black man who is a conservative, who is an independent thinker, I have always had problems with white liberals, whether it was my teachers in the classroom, whether it's people in society. I met a woman, and she and I were very physically attracted to each other. Very attractive white woman. She looked like Meryl Streep. And Meryl Streep is one of my favorite actresses. Not so much her political views, but her acting skills and the way she looks. She turns me on, right? So this woman looks like Meryl Streep. And she and I were, we put together a relationship. And she just decided that I was a wonderful guy and she really enjoyed being with me, but my politics, she just could not get over my politics. And I said, well, that's not very mature, since Carvel is married to a woman who not only campaigned for George Bush, but she worked in the office for the president. Okay.
Mary Maitland.
Mary Maitland. Yeah. So, but these people are so insecure in their beliefs, and they're to me, they're more racist than any conservative I've ran into. And I hear, like, I was on the phone. I was telling the story. I was on the phone with a friend of mine in D.C., and he was telling me that Trump was Hitler. This is what Hitler did in the 30s. And I'm going, say that, tell somebody else that, man. I'm just not the guy I just can't buy into that nonsense. I'm sorry. Tell somebody else that, because it insults my intelligence. You see what you understand what I'm saying, Frank? It insults my intelligence.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, the press, the press, which continues to claim that it's so in favor of minorities, did you notice that they didn't give one split second of publicity to a fellow named John James, who could well be the first black senator from the state of Michigan? Now, they were all about Andrew Gillum, who wants to be the first black governor of Florida, but they've ignored John James because John James is a conservative Republican.
Well, not only that, this is the thing that really bugs me. And I'm going to say it because, this is the reality check, and I just say things the way they are. I get tired of looking at white people on TV telling me that Donald Trump is a racist when they don't have one black person who is a host or have their own show on any of these networks. The only one who has his own show is a gay black man who I have no respect for because he's, as far as I'm concerned, an immoral moron. And I just don't have any respect for Don Lemon. There's nothing that we have in common or anything that he says that I have any respect for. So that is the only black person with a news show on mainstream TV that I know of. Correct me if I'm wrong, Frank.
No, I have to say you're 100% right on that. And there's a subtle racism on the part of white liberals who basically seem to believe that anyone not like them is somehow stupid or somehow is not worthy of public attention. And you see this all the time.
Well, it's insulting. It's disingenuous. And, I tell you, we have to stand up and we have to rail against this backlash. And I can tell you that the only person in my lifetime that I have seen take the bull by the horns has been Donald J. Trump, and Ronald Reagan. Those are the two, in my opinion, the two greatest Republican presidents that we have had. They put this country back on track. Now, George Herbert Walker Bush comes in. Now, he's a globalist secretly. He's a sneaky little globalist. And he's selling the country out to his little cabal of neoconservatives. And, here's a guy who stands up and talks about one world order. Do you think you would ever hear that coming out of Ronald Reagan's mouth? One world order? Do you think you would hear that coming out of Donald Trump? Am I lying, Frank? Do you remember that, right?
I remember it indeed. No, you are absolutely correct. One of the interesting things about the globalist concept is that when you used to have a real globalist concept, particularly in Europe where there was an interrelated family of royalists who ran the entire continent, there was no real idea of citizenship. You were subjects of a particular realm, but you weren't really a citizen with particular rights. And what the globalists are leading us back to is a concept like that. When a couple of intelligentsia, self-proclaimed of course, want to basically reduce us to the subjects as opposed to citizens of a country.
Right. And I just want people to understand what's at stake today.
Of its founders.
One world order. One world order. This is what George Bush said. Listen.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Wow. Man, when he said that, I could not believe. My mouth dropped to the floor. I couldn't believe it. I mean, what has the UN and the Blue Caps ever done that's worked? They didn't help out in Korea. That was the United States. Our boys, we lost 50. What? How many did we lose? 38,000 people in Korea. 38
I
men
believe
and
it
women.
was something that name. Yeah,
right. Every United Nations issue that has been anywhere or that springs up, it's always the United States military that's giving its blood and its lives. It's not the French. It's not the UK. It's the U.S. It's our dollars, our blood, our people sacrificing. And there is no one world order. There is the U.S. of the United States of America who are out here leading.
Well, what's kind of fascinating, if you take a look at Europe, the European Union, as an example of what this internationalism eventually leads to, more and more individual Europeans have very little say in the way that their nation or their continent, in fact, is actually governed. And the entire globalist concept leads in that direction where, again, a small group of self-proclaimed experts or intelligentsia make all the decisions and cut the citizenry out of the process.
So have you heard of Brexit? Isn't
it fascinating? The people made explicitly clear what they want to do, and the government just decides, hey, we might ignore it.
No, look. But that's not the only place that happens. I remember a referendum was on the ballot in Michigan about daylight savings time, and the people voted daylight saving time out. This was back in the 70s. Do you know that the state still is on daylight savings times, even though the people voted daylight saving times out? See, that is the egregiousness of American politicians. They think that they're not governed by, could you imagine, and I'm just flipping the script here, but could you imagine Hillary Clinton being president and what would happen? Could you imagine the Chinese would talk down to us because she's a woman? They would have said, you know what? We have your jobs, we have your technology, you have our money. We tell you what to do, America. Hillary Clinton wouldn't have stood up to the North Koreans. Donald Trump said, look, we will turn you to ashes. Keep shooting those missiles threatening our people in Hawaii. We will turn you to ashes. The missiles stopped. Do you remember that? They had air raids in Honolulu. Could you imagine being in New York right now, Frank, sitting in your office and hearing an air defense siren going off telling you to take shelter? God, I mean, that would be frightening. I remember as a young boy, we used to have national defense raid practices. I forget what you called them, but it was duck, cover, and we used to say as kids,
air raid drills.
Yeah,
air raid drills.
We say duck, cover, and kiss your ass goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah, we were like, okay, so we duck and cover under the desk. This is supposed to keep us from being incinerated. I mean, we were like 7 and 8 years old. We're going, I don't think so. Especially when they were showing pictures of the kids in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. See, they showed pictures to us then. Today, it's like, well, those aren't really acceptable for our children because they're just so horrible. We don't want them to. Man, we saw what happened to these people at Nagasaki and Hiroshima. We're going, oh my God, I don't want that. And then we had the Cuban crisis. Do you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis? I was in school. I remember it very vividly. Do. And remember they kept doing the drills because we were about to go to war. They kept, drilling us during the day, duck, cover, and kiss your ass goodbye. Even as kids, we knew that wasn't going to save our little behinds, okay? What did you guys think, Frank? Just for curiosity, do you remember what you guys thought about duck and cover?
We kind of took it as a joke because we all saw the newsreels of the atom bomb.
Yeah.
And the idea of going under your desk.
Yeah. This is
it just didn't seem to cut the idea at all.
This is some magical space it's going to. We're like, hold it, wait a minute. That bomb just took everything in 100 miles and leveled it. I mean, really? But we were in this old brick structure. It was the oldest elementary school in Detroit. It was called Riverside Elementary School. It's gone now, but it would have withstood a blast. But because we were the Motor City, and because we were the center of America's economy, because remember, in those days, as John Smith said, who was chairman of GM, as GM goes, so goes America.
So goes the nation.
And that was true. So we were like, so when our teacher would talk to us, it's like, well, we're going to be hit, and New York is going to be hit, and Washington, D.C. is going to be hit, and the rest of the country you can just forget about. There's nothing there. They're not important. This is in the 50s, man. This is before, Frank, we had the interstate system in place. Isn't that amazing? I remember when they were building the interstate.
You know, there's something else that most people seem to forget, particularly in the media. Remember the nuclear freeze movement that the left was pushing?
Yeah.
And the fact that it was financed to a significant degree by the Soviet Union? Isn't it amazing that no one ever talked about Russian interference back in the day when they were actually really providing a lot of money and a lot of leadership for the American left?
Well, yeah. And, you know, the American left had a lot of lefties in the civil rights movement. And so one of my professors, a man named Harold Cruz, Dr. Harold Cruz, and for those of you who'd like to look him up, his most famous book is called The Crisis of the Negro Intellectual, where he talks about, one of the things he talks about is how the civil rights movement really empowered Jews, not black folks. And that a number of these Jews who participated in the civil rights movement were communists and socialists. You know, people really forget the Jewish influence in the Bolshevik Revolution and the socialist and communist movements in Europe. Isn't that amazing? How that's kind of conveniently left out of history.
Well, and here's a question, bringing it right back up to
Okay, what's the question? What's the question?
Certainly there has been no president who's been more friendly towards Israel than President Trump.
Right.
Yet we still see their predictions that Jewish voters overwhelmingly are going to vote Democrat. And it's actually quite baffling. Another case of voters voting against their own self-interest.
Mm-hmm. But they're voting Democrat because that's who they are. That's where their money is. That's where their mindset is. And their mindset and their money is not about helping poor people or giving poor people a pathway to wealth or helping poor people to be financially and politically and economically empowered. That's not what Democrats do. They have theirs and they don't want anybody else to get any, because they need people.
Which is why, by the way, it's fascinating that despite the reputation that the Republicans have of being the party of the wealthy, if you look at the donations from, for example, Wall Street and most billionaires, they tend to go almost totally to the Democrat Party, not the Republicans.
Well, that's true, Frank, but who's keeping tabs? Who knows that? You know, I forget what the number used to be, but I remember that the average donor to Ronald Reagan's campaign was something like $15. That was the average donation. Correct. The average donation to the Democrat Party at the time was like $100. That's a big difference. And we're not talking about all the heavy hitters and no one really talked about how much money I think the richest Republican at the time was the Rockefellers. Okay, remember? And they had the Rockefeller Republicans. But when you look at the Democrat side,
who were, by the way, the most liberal and most left wing of the Republicans.
Yeah, so when you look at the Democrat side of the House and the rich people who were in Congress and who were running things, they were all, all these millionaires were Democrats. And the thing that I always thought about that as a kid was none of these people reached out to help Black folks, these so-called Democrats with all this money. If anyone hoodwinked anyone, I think it's the Kennedys hoodwinked Black people, first of all. The Democrat Party continued to hoodwink Black people. We continue to debate and go over the same issues every election cycle. Racism. You have Oprah Winfrey and Barack Obama out there talking about slavery. Don't let Donald Trump take you back to slavery. Oprah Winfrey said, "Your people were in chains. Get out and vote." I mean, really? I don't know any of my relatives who were in chains. I knew my grandmother, my great-grandfather. They weren't slaves. They were sons and daughters of slaves, but they were not slaves themselves. Amazing.
Well, when the Democrat Party simply doesn't have a lot of the issues that they can tout, when their solutions have not done very well at all, the only way you can entice voters is through cutting people into tribes. Look at that guy. He's no good. He doesn't like you. So vote for me instead.
But you know, what about this guy Dan Crenshaw, who this guy tried to mock on Saturday Night Live? I thought that was despicable.
Yeah, an absolute hero who lost his eye in the defense of the United States, and he's mocked on Saturday Night Live. That tells you a lot about the mentality of the left.
But did you hear that little punk and what he said? Well, I think he lost his eye at war or something like that. You know, I want to punch his little behind out. See, that's the difference between Trump Republicans and Republicans like Michael Steele. Michael Steele wants to try to be nice and out Democrats. You never win being a nice guy, as Hillary Clinton said. You know, you can't be civil with people who are uncivil to you. And Democrats are and that's my thing. You know, Frank, you've been on my shows where people have called in and tried to denigrate me, and I attack them right back. Because if you don't, you lose, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, far too many Republicans tend to bring not even knives, but perhaps rocks or sticks to a gunfight, and that hasn't really worked well for them.
Well, Frank, what's your prediction for tonight? I mean, where are you going to be? What you going to do? What you thinking about?
I'm looking at the Senate. I believe we'll pick up a couple of seats in the Senate. I think the House is too close to call, and as I said earlier on, I think it depends far too much on very, very local issues and very personal experiences that people may have had or not had with their local congressional representative. I do think the effect of the higher spending on the part of the Democrats will be important. I do think that the unrelenting support that the media has given to House candidates who are Democrats is going to be very important.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'll come into play. So I suspect it's going to be a very hard push for the Republicans to hold on to the House, but it's going to be very close.
Well, why do you think it's going to be? Why do you think it's going to be close?
Because I do think there is a singular effect of all those dollars that the Democrats have spent, and I do think there is an impact of the media's blackout on Republican candidates. Certainly, when you turn on your TV or your radio, and almost all of the information is pro-Democrat, that is going to have an impact on the way that people vote. Can't be denied.
Well, you know, one of my classmates from elementary school through through high school, from elementary school through high school, Jill Watts Brizard. She wrote that John James is a rock star. We haven't given up hope. She's in Michigan, in a very exclusive neighborhood in Michigan. And she's like, hey, you know, this thing, we haven't given up hope. It's going to go our way, hopefully. And I hope it does. You know, I really do.
Again, you take a look at the extraordinary publicity that Andrew Gillum has gotten in Florida to be the potential first black governor, and the almost total lack of any coverage that John James has gotten in Michigan. Well,
you know, the other thing is, when you look at Gilliam is under a FBI investigation right now. That says
That's
something.
correct, for corruption as mayor of Tallahassee.
And then, you know, this lady in Georgia, Stacey Abrams. I mean, what qualifies her to be the governor of Georgia except she's a black woman? That doesn't give her qualification.
You mean other than the fact that she owes $50,000 to the Internal Revenue Service and is $170,000 in credit card and student loan debt?
Well, okay, but you know, these are two people, and I don't want to see us get back into this thing I want people to be elected based on their qualifications, based on what they bring to the country. It's like I think the Saturday Night Live skit. I think it backfired on those people, and I think Crenshaw is going to. People are going to go out and vote for him because they look closer at the guy now. You know, said, hey,
But
you know,
here's the problem. Here's the problem.
what's that?
You and I, two educated men, and we're talking about the influence of Saturday Night Live. Far too many, particularly the millennial generation, are getting their news not from the news, but from comedy shows or those late night idiots
Like
who
Colbert.
come on every evening with their monologues and their dumb shows. That's a real problem we have in our country that we're going to have to deal with at some point. Because when you have an entire generation that doesn't know the difference between comedy and news, that predicts bad things for the country going forward.
Well, I mean, they're bad things anyway. I mean, have you ever talked to these millennials? You ever go into a store and deal with any of these millennials? They look at you right in the eye and they ask you the same thing 3 times. And you answer them the same way 3 times. And then they finally get it. It's like they're brain dead. You know, it's like, I'm serious. And you know what I say? This is what I say to them. It's for the 3rd time. And I repeat myself, right? And they go, because, you say the psychologists or sociologists say if you repeat something 3 times, people tend to remember it. And that's what it seems like when you're dealing with these millennials. It's you have to say things over and over 3, 4, 5 times for them to get it. They just have a hard time processing, communicating with people. So, I mean, I had
and there's a reason for that, Charles. And the reason for that is throughout their education, they've not been taught how to think. They've been taught what to think. And I think that's a real difference in the way education has always been conducted in this country in the past.
Well, they're indoctrinating people. Remember, what the gays want to do now is they want to start with preschool, teaching children that it's okay to be gay. It's okay. What do children know about sex? What do children know about being gay? Then they pass.
No one wants to even talk about the basic concept that it is warped to try to talk to kindergartners or young kids about sex in the first place. That's not the business of the school in the first place.
Okay, so now, if that's not the business of the school, the gay community is attacking the academic community, saying there was a law passed in California, started January 1st, that school books have to include gay people in them. So I'm reading this book, right, that they're supposed to revise. And they claim that Abraham Lincoln was a homosexual and he had a homosexual relationship with some dude that he lived with. Serious as a heart attack. This is in a history book I'm serious, in California. And of course, they always talk about Bayard Rustin. And, I'm going to blow a hole in Bayard Rustin in my new book. Speaking of books, Frank, there's a new book out called Douglas. It's on Frederick Douglass. It's by a guy named David Blythe. You should check it out.
I will have to do that.
Hey, well, look, Frank, I know
Charles,
you've been talking all day.
And I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too, man. So thank you so much for being with us. You too, sir. Take care. Bye-bye. That's Mr. Frank Venucio. Hey, look, we are going to switch gears here. We got about 10 minutes left. We're going to go to commercial, and we'll be right back. Okay.
Hey, This is Leonora Cravota from Red State Talk Radio for My Pillow. I used to have trouble sleeping. My Pillow changed all that. I now fall asleep within moments of my head touching my pillow. That's how comfortable My Pillow is with its patented interlocking fill. My Pillow stays cool and does not go flat. Plus, it's machine washable and dryable. My Pillow has a 10-year warranty and a 60-day comfort guarantee. My Pillow is also the official pillow of the National Sleep Foundation, and it's made right here in the USA. My Pillow is now offering Red State Talk Radio listeners a 4-pack special with 2 premium standard or queen pillows and 2 go anywhere pillows. That's 4 pillows for the price of 1. To take advantage of this special offer, call 1-800-961-9194 and ask for promo code Red State. That's 1-800-961-9194, promo code Red State. Put sleepless nights behind you with My Pillow, the most comfortable pillow you will ever own. For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to The Reality Check with Charles Butler. We are broadcasting live here at redstatetalkradio.com and other terrestrial stations around the country. If you'd like to listen to us on terrestrial station, you have to put in Charles Butler Radio. Things will come up. Hey, but look, as we continue the show, well, we got like 10 minutes. I want to kind of digress for a minute and play a rant by, and I'm laughing because I get so tired of hearing people accuse President Trump of being racist without any proof, validation. And here's a guy, and I want to repeat this. He won the Ellis Island Award for being a great American in 1988, and he won an award, Lifetime Achievement Award, from Jesse Jackson Sr. From Operation Push for his help with Black folks and helping Black Americans across the country. So, but I want to play Micah and Morning Joe. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, really, listen to this.
Marauders are at the border, pouring in to hurt everybody.
Listen,
By the way, there are people at the border now who camped out on the Tijuana side who are waiting to come in the country. I don't want them in our country. I'm sorry. I don't care what color they are. They could be orange. They could be purple. I don't care. We have enough people in this country already that are poor and ignorant, that need help, and that we need to get up to speed so they can take care of themselves.
I have always been pragmatic, Michael Steele, and I have always had a lot of Democratic friends, had a lot of liberal friends, I've had a lot of conservative friends, I've had a lot of libertarian friends, and my feeling has been, you know what, this is America, it's a big country, you vote the way, obviously, you want to vote, and I'm in no position to judge you. That's a little harder to do in 2018 when you have the President of the United States lying about smallpox, coming to...
That's not true. We haven't had any, he's not lying about smallpox. We haven't had any outbreak of, we had virtually eliminated, let me repeat, we had eliminated polio, smallpox, chickenpox in America because we vaccinated our children. Now these diseases are back. Tuberculosis, I forgot about that. Tuberculosis. These diseases are back because children haven't been, and adults have not been inoculated. Get these people the hell out of this country. We don't need them. I don't care if they want to come. Everybody in the world wants to come to America. I remember being in Lagos, Nigeria, about 25 years ago. And this guy, you know, I was at this meeting, and this guy, he was in my face because I was an American, and he's yada, yada, yada. And he talked about how oppressive America was and how racist America is. And how, he hated America and he hated Americans. And, I'm looking at him kind of, laughing and, but watching him, because you never know about these people, because they think we're kind of like Martin Luther King. And I try to remind them that I am not one of those Martin Luther King black guys. You hit me, I'm going to tear you behind up. So anyway, then when this African guy, he happens to be black, African guy finishes, he says, yeah, and I'm going to get me a Cadillac when I get there too. Man, everybody that had been listening to this conversation bent over laughing. And the guy had this look on his face like, and he was serious. He was serious as a heart attack. And people had this look on their face like, I don't believe he said that. They were cracking up because he's just been dogging America. Everybody wants to come to America. All the Africans I know dying to get to America. And these people, I want to go to Africa. I want to go back to the motherland. For what? To visit. That's like saying, I want to go back to the projects and live, and I want to live in the squalor and the danger and the dirt and the filth and the craziness. No, not me. Some people may want to, but I never experienced that madness, nor do I ever want to. So that's the scoop on that. MSNBC. And Michael Steele, he was just so, we probably need to, because everybody,
Sound like marauders.
people don't forget that Michael was studying to be a Catholic priest. So he has a different demeanor than most folks. But this is what Mike had to say. Let's listen to it.
The Democratic Party is finding it so racist that you actually...
Oh, that was the ad that they pulled from TV. I like the ad. See, the ad hit home. The ad was very effective. So this is how the media censors you, okay? So NBC, CBS, Fox News, they all pull this ad because it's so damn effective. It is selling Trump. It's getting Americans riled up. Oh, it's hate speech. Who's to decide what hate speech is? Who's to decide what's racist? It's all these white people. And I always say to white people who talk about racism, have you ever been called the N-word? Have you ever had a door slammed in your face or an elevator closed in your face because you're black? The answer is generally, well, no. I said, well, then what do you know about racism? Nothing. Have you ever been looked over in a department store or a grocery store when you have an American Express gold card in your pocket? Well, no. Yeah. Have you ever been in Bergdorf shopping at a suit? Everybody's running around. The salespeople are running all over people to get to people, and sometimes there are two salesmen at a person, and nobody will wait on you. What do you know about racism? Absolutely not a damn thing. But anyway, hey, look, it's about time for us to get out of here. It's that time again, and I love it. It's time to wind down. We're going to stop broadcasting on Red State in about 30 seconds. And we'll be back tomorrow. Go over election results. We'll probably have, who? I don't know. I'll get somebody. So tune in. Check me out at facebook.com. Charles Butler Conservative. We'll be back tomorrow. Boom, 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 boom. So have a good one, guys. We're going to keep broadcasting on Facebook. Boom, boom, boom. Yep, we're gone. Okay, but we're still here on Facebook. And I just want to say that I'm going to put a little item up that I wrote today. And it will be on the election, my prediction. So I'm going to get that up before the elections come in, so people can't say, well, I predicted this after the elections were in. So I'm going to send it out, get it up to speed, see what happens. And I'll be watching the elections tonight. I'll be on a couple of local shows, doing an analysis. So we'll see what happens. It'll be fun. All I can say is I hope that people uh, vote, vote your interest, vote early. Well, it's getting late now, but go vote. I've already voted. In fact, I think, and I didn't show this. Let's see here. Did I put it in my pocket? Yeah. Let's see here. Did I leave it in the car? Du-du-du-du-du. Let's see. Oh yeah, I voted. Yeah, I voted. I got up this morning about 5:30. I was writing and decided I'd go down to the poll. The poll opened at 6. I was there about 6:15 and cast my vote. Not that it means a lot here in Chicago or in Illinois, because this is a solid blue state because of one county, and that's Cook County. If you win Cook County, you can win anything in the state. So it's just the way it is. But voters are speaking out. Uh, Donald Trump, I think, is going to do a great job. He's done a great job campaigning. I think people are going to go out and vote to support the president, support what he's doing. They don't want things to change. As Barack Obama said, we're voting for the character of the country. Don't think so. Our character is kicking butt. That's what Americans do. Anyway, hey, I'm going to say goodbye, everybody. Look, have a great voted election day. Pay attention tonight to what's happening. And let's say a prayer that we keep the House, keep the Senate, keep this country moving forward. Let's make America, continue, I should say, to make America great again. Okay? So let's do that. Take care. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you.